Naruto is a prodigy as old and good as Itachi. Kyuubi is sealed inside his younger sister. He saved his parents on the Kyuubi assault, but they ignore him. Now, trained by Konoha's best and with Kyuubi on his side, he will become a legend as the Anbu Demon Fox of Konoha. Chapter 1. In the garden of the Namikaze mansion, stood 3 happy members of the family with the same name, the father, the mother and the daughter. The father was a blonde-haired man with spiky golden hair, on his cloak written Yondaime, the fourth. The mother and the small girl looked almost the same, except that the girl's eyes were cyan, while the mother's were a deep blue. Both had long red hair, and the girl looked exactly like the mother in her youth. Off on the side however, was not so happy member of the family. A boy that was 100% his father, but while the older man's features seemed to emit warmth, the young one seemed to look with a mix of anger, hate and jealousy, features that didn't stay very well on the face of a 10-year-old. The boy's name was Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto, the Namikaze said with unhidden scorn when his famility wasn't around. His sister, Namikaze Uzumaki Mito, was, as usual, getting all their attention. 4 years ago that made him sad, but not now. She was Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, and was looked up to like a goddess. He was 5 years older, a prodigy of equal standing with Itachi Uchiha, who was also his best friend. But no one paid attention to him until now. He just came home to tell them that he not only passed the Chunin exams, but was asked to join Anbu. Unfortunately he never could tell them because they were too busy with the young girl. Oh well, I'll just tell them when, later he thought, looking at his family. As a matter of fact, why tell them? It's not like they care, he thought. He was starting to doubt if his parents actually acknowledged his existence at all. Heck, he was away for 2 months, yet they didn't seem to notice in the least. His mother Kushina probably still didn't know he was there. His father Minato was dragged along, so he had no time to say hello. Is he some kind of weak fanboy? He wondered. The girl was learning the Rasengan, which he long since learned and upgraded, to the point of adding an element. Secretly, he started learning from many Jounins. Guy taught him taijutsu, until now he was Jounin level. Asuma got his elemental training with wind. Hayate taught him sword lessons, in exchange for the cure to his sickness, which he got during a mission. His genjutsu was equal to Guranai's, and he had a summoning contract from the least expected person, Kyuubi. Slowly, he walked inside the house, looking down as he thought, they really don't care. Chapter 1. Anbu? Since when? 3 years later. An Anbu wearing a kitsune mask walked slowly inside the Hokage's office. He hated this place with all his might, although he never came here before. What he hated was the person who stood in the office. The Yondaime lifted his head to look at the newly instated Anbu captain. He had just sent the other new Anbu captain, Itachi, off and was wondering how in the world did a 13-year-old become Anbu captain. He certainly didn't expect for the other to be the same age. "What's your name, Kitsune-san?" he asked, frowning. He had no info on the Anbu except for his age and the fact that he had amazing abilities. "My name is Uzumaki Naruto, Yondaime-sama." Now that made Minato do multiple things. First, he braced himself without wanting to when the boy accentuated that. Secondly, his jaw dropped thinking that he had such a cool son that became Anbu captain at age 13. Thirdly, he paled when he remembered that he didn't know anything at all about his son's skill. "And Naruto? Bibu, but shouldn't you be at the academy?" Naruto shrugged before responding in a bored tone. "I graduated 6 years ago, Hokage-sama." 1 hour later we find a still shocked Minato sitting at the table with his ex-student Kakashi. Minato, still trying to understand what the hell did he just hear, decided to ask him. "What do you know of my son, Kakashi?" Kakashi responded carelessly, "He is a prodigy only seen once in 100 years, respected by every single shinobi higher than Jinan." Minato's jaw was hitting the floor. He has his name anyway and Kumo's bingo book, Kumo with kill on sight and Iwa with flee on sight. Minato's eyes were out of their places already. He graduated academy in 1 year, became Chunin at the age of 10, and joined the Anbu 2 months later with his rival and best friend Itachi Uchiha. His nickname is the Demon Fox of Konoha. Minato just fainted after that last one. That evening, Kushina and Mito watched very shocked how Minato entered the door, pale like he saw the ghost of Madara. He quickly went to the table, sitting down while trembling like a leaf. As Kushina went near him, he put his face in his palms and tried to keep his sobs at bay. Kushina was getting scared. "What happened, Minato-kun?" she said, scared. All she got was something like a whine. In that second the door opened to reveal Naruto still dressed with his Anbu clothes. Kushina stood scared seeing him like that. She saw him holding his kitsune mask in one hand, and approached with an unnerving glance. "Since when has he been at Anbu? And is that the kitsune mask? Is he that demon fox of Konoha?" That last thought made her look at Minato with a pitiful look. She felt the same way. She didn't even know he passed the Junon exams. Meanwhile, the young girl raised an eyebrow. What's wrong, Mom? Dad? It's just Naruto-ni-san in his Anbu gear? What, haven't you seen it before? She asked, surprised to see her parents stare at her. How long did you know for? Asked the two adults. For 3 years. Why? The two were almost foaming. Kushina more so, for she didn't know her son had been in Anbu for 3 years. I never actually asked what he was doing, or what his rank was currently. The parents thought at the same time. They felt like punching themselves. Meanwhile, Naruto seemed to be staring at Mito with a lot of concentration. She never got why, but didn't really want to bug in. Hey Q-chan, how are you holding up? Thought the boy. I'm doing well, Naru-kun, but I'm running out of books here. He heard the response of the Kyuubi. The relationship of Naruto and Kyuubi was strange. First they were the only friends of each other, not counting Itachi. Later they developed something like a brother-sister relationship. For all they knew about that, now they would tease each other to no end. For example, when Naruto first tried to use Fuuten Rasengan, he summoned Kyuubi to help him, just for her to laugh in his face when it blew up. As revenge, Naruto gave her an Icha book the next time she needed something to do. His head still hurt from the punch she gave him, but it was worth it to see her angry. Mito was looking strangely at her parents. What did Naruto do? Then it hit her like palm. Her parents must not have known. It made sense since she found out they completely ignored him. She still thought of him like a big brother. He sure had more free time anyway. He was a little overprotective though, if she was to remember what happened 2 weeks ago, though it was a painful memory to remember. Flashback. The bell just rang, and Mito, Hinata and a new friend of Mito's called Rito got out. Mito was happy as she was blabbering about the fact that Naruto was going to be the one to take her home, which she was very happy about. Hinata had a pink color in her cheeks. She was an unofficial member of the Fanaru, how they called themselves, all big fans of the Anbu member, stories about him spreading like the wind around the village. Rito, however, hardened his gaze before slowly letting his hand reach into his pouch. Now I'll avenge you, Dad. I'll kill the demon, he muttered, before quickly drawing a kunai and attacking the defenseless girl. She felt an impossible pain as the kunai slashed her back. Just as she turned around, she saw Rito's hand with a kunai heading towards her, while he shouted, "Die demon." She closed her eyes expecting pain while she shouted reflexively, "Nissan." She never felt the pain. She opened her eyes to see the boy pinned to the ground, with his hand at his back held by another one, and a kunai at his neck. She looked up and saw that it was her brother looking at him with a face that screamed anger and fury. He let his killing intent leak slightly, and the boy was almost crying. Stop. Mizuki's sensei W will give you detention. The young boy shouted. Naruto smirked. No, I will be giving both you and Mizuki detention to Aviki. But if you don't shut up, it might spare me the effort and I can cripple you right here, and send you to Aviki in 5 different packages, he shouted. Rito skipped a beat. He knew the tone. Anbu-san? He asked, slightly scarred. Anbu, yes, but I'm also Mito-Imoto's big brother Naruto, and if you dare threaten her again I will personally send you Tokami, he said, his tone rising until a level that made Kyuubi shiver in excitement. Even she could consider that cool. The fangirls, or fanners as above mentioned, just tripled in number, including even some of the older girls this time. Anbu or Chunin didn't make a difference. Flashback end. She had later discovered that such things were uncommon even for him. Sure, if someone was to hurt his subordinates, this Aviki person would somehow applaud him for the result, though Inoiki really hated when it happened. For some reason, it made her happy that he cared enough to do that, seeing as she ignored him for most of her life, though 5 years out of 8 weren't that much. She only noticed him when she saw him entering the house with a Chunin vest on, 3 years ago. He told her that he won the Chunin exams, although the battle between him and Itachi was a draw. Apparently, Naruto was able to do a Rasengan before he was catched in Itachi's genjutsu. Still, she was happy when she heard he made Chunin. When she entered the academy, Minato and Kushina didn't have any more time to help her, so she resorted to his help. She shaked a little remembering what happened after the demon incident. The flashback. She was so scared she thought she will have an emotional trauma. Naruto had left the room to change to casual clothes. Her parents looked at her a little before deciding to ask her a few things. Does he hate us? Asked Kushina. He considers you as a Jounin and a Hokage, nothing more nothing less, I think. She answered. The older ones raised their eyebrows. You think? They asked. He might be lying so he doesn't hurt me or something, it is kind of thing, was the answer. Minato decided to ask something that he had been wondering about. Does he have many friends? She shook her head sadly. His only friends are Uchiha Itachi, his rival, and a girl named Akane Okyo, not an OC, his girlfriend, she said, a slight edge in her voice. Only Itachi has ever met her. The Ondaime narrowed his eyes. Why would he be hiding her? The girl suddenly perked up. Oh yeah, he was going on a date with her tomorrow. He is going to finally show her to the rest of us. Inside a certain seal, a certain kitsune's fur was red, not because of anger, but because she completely forgot about that. She quickly transformed into her human form, in which she looked a lot like Kushina when she was 18, except her hair had a few orange strands, and her bust was bigger with a cup or three. Her figure also looked more trained. She was also taller than Kushina was now. She giggled when she remembered that Naruto's parents had no idea she was Akane, a name she took from a kitsune friend, while the Okyo was a rewrite of Yoko as in Kyubi no Yoko. Not like they were gonna found out anytime soon, not at all. If it was me deciding, she thought. She had given Naruto her summoning contract in a deal. She helped him train. He would summon her so she could walk out, seal be Hayden. The deal could evolve, and she knew she might just do that. She was going to ask for something more in exchange to giving her container her power, but that could wait. She had a date to prepare for. Naruto suddenly remembered that too, and decided to go back to Anbu HQ to take the day off. He felt a sudden shiver up his back and had a strange urge to go kill the Yondaime. He doesn't call him father even in description. And Kushina, same here, and plunge a Rasengan into Mito. He sighed and left his room by window, too quickly to hear an evil laugh. So we are going to follow them? Asked Mito. Sure as hell we will. Even if he doesn't believe us to be his parents, we still won't let go with some random girl. Is she even a shinobi? Said Kushina, the last being sent as a question to Minato. He concentrated hard and came up with the only explanation he could figure out. We have a new Anbu, Wolf is her mask, but I never asked her name. He said. She is an amazing shinobi, I heard, as strong if not stronger than Kakashi. She should be able to defeat anyone aside from me, Naruto, Itachi and maybe Kakashi, he continued. Kushina sighed. It was about time she got back in gear. She had kinda been on standby as a ninja for 8 years. Kami have mercy on her atrophied muscles, for she will have none. A blonde boy was running quickly across the rooftops, at a speed that most would consider inhumane, while the rest wouldn't see more than a blur. Strangely, even at that speed he was extremely hard to notice, that if you weren't that the Ondaime or his wife, who were following him to the best of their ability. Suddenly, the boy used a wind and force jump to fly over a few buildings. The two followers were hit by dust for 2 seconds, during which strangely a smirk appeared on the blonde's face. He suddenly changed directions and jumped towards the Hokage monument. The older ninja had no time to think why was he doing this as they continued their chase. Over the shoulder of the male older ninja stood a girl no younger than 8, barely decreasing the man's rhythm. After following the boy for 3 minutes he stopped and simply disappeared in a poof of smoke. The Ondaime wasn't exactly happy with that, trying to take his hair out. Surely being tricked by a 13-year-old wasn't something bad to the most powerful shinobi ever, right? Don't count on it. The woman fell to her knees and hit the ground with a punch, making a small crater on the road. Damn you Minato, weren't you supposed to be able to catch someone half your age, Mr. Yellow Flash? She shouted. He wasn't exactly happy. Aren't you supposed to be able to sense his chakra with some Uzumaki thing? You caught me hundreds of times like that, Kushina. He responded. The girl just shook her head. Why don't we wait for them to meet? It's not that hard to find them, if they go on a civilized date, she said before sighing. The older ninja face faulted. How did we not think of that, they thought. With Naruto. The boy ran quickly towards the forest of death, watchful of his surroundings as he closed into the training ground. He came to a stop and let a smile grace his lips, before chuckling like a madman. He felt his shadow clone disappear after making his family run for 15 minutes, in a completely random direction. A shadow clone he made when they were blinded by dust. He jumped over the forest's fence, and set up a genjutsu that made it look like he was eating an apple. Then, he went through some hand seals at a speed no Sharingan user could copy, bit his finger and shouted, summoning just to, QB, before slamming his hand on the ground. In front of him appeared a fog of smoke. Before he had time to move, he was embraced, though it would be more like a lariat, by a red blur. He, however, expected it and embraced back. It's been quite a while since you last summoned me, almost 4 days now, said QB, pouting heavily. Naruto just laughed slowly before distancing the demon girl from him, making her pout yet again. But if I'd summon you too much, Mito might notice a slight increase in chakra control, and a decrease in reserves, not to mention your seal completely disappears from her. He responded with a fake whine. The girl giggled before looking at the necklace she had. It was the same seal as on the girl, but at a smaller scale. allowing her only 4.5 tails before sending her back in the seal, forcefully I might add. Smiling, she grabbed his hand with hers and said, "We have a date to go to, don't we?" Naruto sighed, and responded with a deadpan, "Please, remember that we are doing this for the sake of the fact that you can't stay too far away from me, else you'd be sent back in the seal." Mentally, they both wished this was a real date, not just a cover, but oh well, beggars can't be choosers. Besides, no one knows that it's a fake, so we can act like it's a real one, Akane added mentally, knowing that telepathy was a kitsune ability, given to the one who had the summoning contract ever since its appearance, 3 years ago. Naruto smiled before shouting, "Here we go, Wind Sunshine!" With the Uzumaki Namikaze family. Loud cheers were heard at Konoha's gates, so the three decided it was their best lead on where they were. Naruto was legend after all, and Akane wasn't far behind. They asked about her. Now they said she was called the Bloody Red Wolf for the fact that on a mission she killed so many enemies that her skin was red from their blood. That sent shivers down Minato's and Kushina's backs. Naruto, you better not have a girl who loves blood for a girlfriend, thought the former, the latter too angry to really think. Mito already knew some of that. Nobody they asked knew anything more than the fact that she had red hair with orange strands, making the Yondai wonder if the boy probably harnessed the kind of women he liked. As they arrived, Kushina and Minato couldn't help but stare, and stare. The girl was a goddess made human. It's technically demon but they don't know, or something along those lines, a thought shared by every single civilian near Konoha's gate. The looks she got varied from the lust-filled ones of the men, and the jealousy ones of the woman, Naruto getting them the other way around. Mito, however, had better things to do, and tried to detect the girl's chakra level. She almost fell on her back when she saw the girl had at least cage-level reserves, being on equal terms with her brother and father. Profiting of those looks, a white-haired Chunin ran with a scroll on his back towards the city gates. The next part sent Kushina and Minato in a flashback. Akane used a wind technique to take the man off the ground, allowing Naruto to catch him with a chakra chain and send him down, making a crater in the ground where he fell, while another chain grabbed the scroll and gave it to a Chunin, all the while just continuing to move. Flashback Kyuubi attack. The Kyuubi was held by numerous chains by a barely alive Kushina. "I'm gonna seal the Kyuubi back inside of me, that shut off its resurrection," shouted the red-haired woman. Minato however would have none of that. "No, you have to take care of both her and Naruto. I'm gonna use the Shiki Fujin to seal half its chakra in myself and the rest in Mito." Kushina couldn't really say anything before Minato activated Shiki Fujin and sealed the first half. Then he shouted, "Hakifun," making a small ritual bed appear. He put Mito on it, but before he could use the jutsu, the Kyuubi sent a claw towards Mito. They both jumped in the way, expecting the claw to go right through them, but the claw didn't come. As they looked behind them, they saw Kyuubi's claw held by 10 small chakra chains, courtesy of a 5-year-old Naruto who shouted, "No you don't, giant furball." As Minato sealed the Kyuubi, he mentally thanked Naruto for saving Kushina. He heard Naruto shout something to the Shinigami, but couldn't understand anything. As he fell, he heard Naruto release a sigh, "Damn, that was close. Sarutobi-san, please take them to the hospital." The next day Minato was startled to have actually waken up alive, but he didn't care. What he cared about was how Kushina and Mito were faring, not once thinking about Naruto's well-being or even thanking him. Kushina did the exact same, both completely forgetting to even say hello to Naruto, let alone thank him. That was how it all started. Flashback end. As this came to their minds, they had to use genjutsu to hide their tears as they thought we didn't even talk to him afterwards. We only were worried about Mito. By the time they were back to reality, they watched Akane clinging to Naruto's hand and putting her head on his shoulder. As Naruto was taller than her, heck, he was one of the tallest ninja around, having slightly over 2 meters, while Akane was also way taller than usual, having at least 1.90 meters. She and Naruto were talking about missions, training and strange news. They seemed to be heading towards Konoha's park, to know if it actually exists, but oh well, which Minato found strange, since he expected him to go to Ichiraku's only to be bonked on the head by Kushina, who stated, "Only you could possibly think that Ichiraku is the only place you can date Simone." As they got inside the park, Naruto let go of Akane, who frowned, faking anger, to take a scroll that was sealed on his arm, and from it he unsealed a picnic basket, who no one had any idea what he made. The two just sat down, with Akane taking a ramen bowl. "I like this girl already," thought Kushina and Minato, while Naruto just took some barbecue that was somehow still warm after being in a seal for quite some time. As Naruto looked to the side he saw a lake, and decided to try something he had thought about for quite a while. He slowly moved towards the lake and put his hand in the water before concentrating on forming a Rasengan, at the same time filling it with water. As he drew his hand out, he realized water was way heavier than wind, just before it exploded right in his face, soaking him with water, and sending him towards the lake's surface. He of course channeled some chakra on his back as not to fall underwater, but Akane didn't know that. As she made to catch him, she, to her great embarrassment as a kitsune, tripped over a root, and fell right on top of Naruto, their lips connecting unwillingly. To say that surprised Kushina, Minato and Mito was a giant understatement, because not only did they not expect Naruto not to go to the bottom, forgetting that he was an Anbu, but Akane moved like a blur so they did not see she tripped. Reactions were multiple. Minato fell on his butt, shocked. Kushina was foaming at the girl's guts, and Mito, she just fainted from shock. Naruto was kind of shook by the exploding water Rasengan, so he simply stood there, trying to understand what the hell just happened, while Akane retracted, so red you could barely see where her hair started. Minato and Kushina carried Mito home, but not before sending a little killing intent, which the girl didn't seem to notice to their anger. Naruto would have a lot of explaining to do, they thought. Meanwhile, Akane decided that they could stop here, and was about to tell the still shocked Naruto, but he was faster. I think we can meet later, you know? He said, scratching his neck's back. Akane complied, and quickly turned back into the seal. Once she knew she was alone, however, she started doing something that resembled a Vittori dance. She had no intention of doing that, but Kami helped her. She would have wanted to. Once she finally got back on her track, she restarted her telepathy with Naruto. Naru-kun, what do you think about a spar, this evening? I'm pretty sure you've been slacking up again. Do you honestly think you can beat your father right now? That is what you've been training for all this time, right? She continued talking, not knowing that Naruto had something slightly better to do than talk. More exactly, he was going to have a talk with his family, and why were they spying on him? Of course, he knew they were there, but didn't want to break the ultra nice mood they had for family problems. Now he was gonna vent out on his parents mentally, and later physically, in this spar. Kurama Kyuubi's real name kept talking about. He quickly entered the Namikaze Uzumaki Hokage pick what you like, P. mansion and went towards the kitchen, expecting to find his family there. To his surprise, they were waiting in the living room, looking very angry. The hell's wrong with them? What did I do to trigger an emotion from them? Can I do it again? Were his thoughts. His killing intent did not calm down, however, as he was subconsciously leaking it. To say his parents were scared was an understatement to be wrote in the history books. Kushina was trying to get as far as possible, while Minato was shifting uncomfortably in his chair, having not felt so much killing intent since the Kyuubi assault. It was true that neither really did missions. With Minato being a Hokage, they had enough money, no need for missions, and Kushina mostly took care of Mito, and that was about it. Now, in front of them stood a 13-year-old kid, whose killing intent was just leaking, and they were already on alarm. I need some serious training, thought Minato, cursing himself. Damn, you sure grew soft over the years, brat, said a voice that sounded very familiar. Naruto perked up quickly. Jiraiya Kyofu? He asked. He was slightly happy. Jiraiya stood with him more than the rest. Heck, he taught him the Rasengan, to a point anyway. Out of the shadows came a white-haired old man, throwing a disappointed look towards Minato, who looked genuinely ashamed of himself. Hello, Jiraiya-sensei, he said, his voice trembling. As Jiraiya narrowed his eyes at his ex-apprentice, he couldn't help but be disappointed. Sure, it was Jounin-level killing intent, but his reaction was that of a high Chunin. Heck, when Minato was a Chunin, he had a similar reaction to his killing intent at full power. Minato decided to speak, hoping to get Jiraiya on his side. Now, Naruto, mind telling us why you hid the fact that you had a girlfriend? He asked with a commanding voice. Naruto deadpanned. You didn't ask, I told everyone. Minato was seriously leaking his entire ki at Naruto, who looked unfazed. Jiraiya decided to soften the mood. Oh yeah, I came to congratulate Naruto on getting his first kiss, and with such a gorgeous woman, no less. Tilda, he said playfully. Naruto chuckled, and bowed his head to Jiraiya as a thank you. Minato was close to pulling out a Hiroshin kunai. Now mind telling me who is she? Asked Minato. Naruto sent out killing intent again, now almost all of it, making Kushina fall unconscious, not that she talked anyway. Naruto then slammed his hands on the table. And what gives you the right to know? You didn't seem to care 1 month ago. Or any year before that, Naruto shouted before slamming the door open and close, and leaving to the training ground, deciding to give it all in the spar, hoping to actually harm Kurama. At the secret training ground, Naruto quickly went through the signs for summoning and did everything like that morning, just way faster because he was angry this time. Finally a battle scene. Let's see Naruto in action. As Kyuubi's human form appeared, he didn't wait before throwing a punch towards her face. She quickly sidestepped, and used her own hand to redirect Naruto's punch. He however, made one-handed signs with his other hand, before shouting, "Futon, wind bullet." The girl substituted with a log that was obliterated by the jutsu, before going through some hand signs herself. Katen, Gukyaku no Jutsu fireball. He had none of that. Futon Kami Orashi wind release, godly wind from the mountain, he shouted, creating a giant vortex of wind, dispelling the fireball, and destroying anything in the place where Kurama stood a second ago. Before creating 3 cage bunshines to watch from all sides. Not sensing her, he suddenly looked up to see her above him in air as she shouted another jutsu, Katen, Houseka no Jutsu fire release, Phoenix Sage fire technique. Sending a lot of small fireballs, Naruto responded in kind by taking out a katana and shouting, Fuuten Kazikiri no Jutsu wind release, wind cutter technique. Sending multiple wind blades to cut the fireballs. Naruto's Bushins quickly threw the original up, who created a Rasengan in his hand, trying to hit the Kitsune with it. However, she was better than that, and quickly used, Fuuten, Datapa wind release, great breakthrough, and sent Naruto right back in the earth, only for him to substitute with a clone, jumping on a nearby lake. He made a better strategy in his mind, before shouting, Suuuatan, Suryudan no Jutsu water release, water dragon bullet technique. Seeing the water dragon, Kurama concentrated wind chakra in her feet and jumped backwards in midair, dodging it by an inch, but before she got time to relax, she was hit from behind by a Rasengan, courtesy of a shadow clone, before the water dragon came back and hit her. He's angry, and because of that more powerful, thought Kurama as she was hit by the water dragon. But she wasn't going down this easily. Raiten, Jaibashi lightning release, electromagnetic murder. She shouted, filling the water dragon with electricity that flew right back at Naruto's feet, shocking him enough to release the jutsu, also allowing Kyuubi 2 seconds, too much in a fight. Reiju Hashiri no Jutsu lightning beast running technique, she shouted evilly, watching Naruto get hit by lightning. Just as he fell he suddenly came back up, then made a few seals. Kyuubi knew the seals too well. So you're going to release that? It seems I will need all my tails after all, she shouted happily, knowing Naruto rarely ever fought at maximum power, let alone activate his most powerful abilities. She smiled, he was the best sparring partner ever. If someone would somehow see them, it would like 2 Hiroshin users were moving across the clearing destroying everything. I'm gonna keep the rest of his abilities secret for now. Evil Academy trouble. As the battle raged on in the training ground, 2 parents were being shouted at loudly by a certain Sanin, who also happened to be their child's godfather. The fact that his godson was ignored angered him to no end, especially when it was the parents of the child that ignored him. So let me get this straight, Dota, you believed he was an academy student? Idiots. He has, if we read the reports, surpassed Kakashi by quite a little, especially with this hidden ability that only Akane and Itachi have seen? Can you even name one of his likes, dislikes or dreams? Have you even seen him in action? He might have surpassed me if the bingo book has anything to say, ranted Jiraiya, his voice filled with anger that would give pause even to Tsunade. Jiraiya was rarely angry. Pissed off? Often. Annoyed? Once in a while. Angry? Rarely. But absolutely furious he never was before. It took a lot not to simply kill Minato right where he stood. He was stopped by a couple of things. First was the fact that Odes would be angry if he killed their summoner. Secondly, Minato was Hokage, so he was supposed to be loyal. Thirdly, he was his student and he didn't want to lose him so quickly, and fourthly, Naruto should be given that honor. He sighed as he watched Kushina cry for her son, with a sobbing Minato trying to comfort her. Off to the side, Mito watched her parents' guilt-filled eyes, and looked at the grounds. Her brother had said things that made it sound like it was okay, but she knew it was lies, but didn't know it was this bad. Some people she heard said that he was a disgrace to the Namikazes, even if he was better than anyone, for the fact he wasn't special enough. He had no Hiroshin epicness like his father, he wasn't a Jinchuriki like his sister, and wasn't the last of a royal clan with sealing abilities like his mother. She also knew he hid his sadness. She had once heard him talk to an Anbu, who she now knew was Akane, after she asked him why did he keep defending the village that treated him like that. His answer was interesting after so long, I'm trying not to always show just how much it hurts, but I'm waiting like everyone else for the appearance of a sunshine. This is a quote, translated from Romanian. That sunshine was her enigma. Just what is he waiting for? She thought, before going to bed. What she completely forgot was that the next day of academy was special, a day to come with your family. Oh god. The next day, Minato, Naruto and Kushina would all have to go to the academy. Unfortunately, Minato was the Hokage, so he had better things to do, while Kushina was still sobbing, not to mention was ultra exhausted from following Naruto. So it was up to the boy to go with the girl, who didn't seem to mind. The boy was also pretty exhausted. Even if you were above cage level, fighting a four-tailed Kyuubi still was ultra exhausting. So, he decided that he needed help that Akane was too happy to give no matter how he commented. "I'm going to be part of the family, right?" she asked as they close in on the academy. Naruto grinned. She was a very good teaser, having lived a few hundred years. But he was with her for 3 years now, so he was almost immune. "One day, yay, but not too soon," he answered. The kids around them were watching the two strangely. Naruto and Akane had not come in their Anbu gear, Naruto deciding to wear something the kitsunes made for him, involving a red cape and red-orange clothes. Akane just took some of the clothes she could make in the mindscape, more exactly orange clothes, making her stand out. In another corner, there was Itachi, who, just like Naruto, had to come without his parents, one a clan head and the other was sick. He barely held in a laugh when he saw Sasuke run from his fangirls, just like him in his early years. Sasuke apparently looked back, but that cost him as he didn't watch where he was going and bumped right into Mito, who was running from her brother's fans who wanted info on him. Because Sasuke was faster, he was the one to fall forward instead of backwards like Mito. So, the Uchiha youngling fell right on top of Mito, making the fangirls squeal. "Oi, get a room would you, Mito-ne-chan?" a voice said from behind Sasuke, making him jump in shock. Behind him were Naruto and Akane, the latter's presence making no freaking sense to Mito. Now I didn't mean to interrupt you, I was just giving advice," added Naruto with a mischievous grin. Sasuke would have none of that. He jumped at Naruto to punch him, his eyes closed, just to be suddenly soaked in water. Looking around he saw Akane lying, and muttering something around the lines of "like a kitsune." "Mizu Bunshine water clone," said a voice from behind him, yet again scaring him. After Sasuke regained his footing, Naruto and Akane dried him with a minor cat and Fuuden combination, and told him to go to class. Naruto and Akane were also about to enter after Mito, just to see the girl shout at someone. Looking inside, they saw the girl shouting at Sasuke, who was held by Itachi as not to start attacking the girl. Before Mito could attack Sasuke though, Naruto appeared with a shunshine and caught her hand, making the fangirls fall over their backs at the pure awesomeness he emitted when he did that. Naruto, after calming down Mito, went to the back to stay with Itachi and Akane. When Irukai entered the classroom, he could honestly say he was scared upon seeing the three monsters. He heard them called a lot of things, but he knew one thing, each of them was almost equal to a Sannin. Heck, he heard someone say that they are going to be named the new Sannins after Jiraiya, Orochimaru and Tsunade pass away, since they were now old. Of course, he had also heard of Akane and Naruto's relationship, as so had the rest of the class if the glares were anything to go by. Waking up from his thoughts, he saw that Mito and Sasuke were yet again trying to kill each other. Normally, he would have stopped them, then laughed it off. But now there was another problem with these two, that he was informed of. The Uzumaki were good friends of the Senju, who were rivals to the Uchiha. With the Senju more or less gone, the Uzumaki might have taken their place, and the possibility that the Uzumaki and Uchiha would fight had another thing. An uneasy comparison was being made between Naruto and Hashirama, Mito and Tobirama, Itachi and Madara and Sasuke and Izuna. It was terrifying to just think about it. Naruto did seem like a good Hokage, but Mito was just too playful. She always played pranks, she was never serious, and the teachings of the academy came to her like a nut that hits the wall. Itachi had nothing in common with Madara excepting ability and the Sharingan. Sasuke however, fitted quite well in the role of the younger brother who always looked up to the elder, and his arrogant personality also came in well. All in all, only Naruto and Sasuke would be able to fit in the Konoha founding drama. If only they knew. Hokage office. Minato looked carefully at the shocked man in front of him. 2 minutes ago he sent an Anbu to bring him the best Yamanaka they had for something extremely important. When the man arrived, he had been shocked by what was asked of him. Hokage-sama, why you want me to look through your memories? Asked the shocked man, unable to understand just what happened that was so important he had to look through the Hokage's precious memories. This is very important, I have a feeling that something was amiss with me for a few years and I have to understand how the hell it happened. Minato answered. It's impossible for me to have ignored Naruto without any reason other than Mito. There must be something that I don't remember. He added mentally. I want you to look at weird things shortly after Kyuubi's defeat. he finished out loud. Inoiki complied, and 20 minutes later he was prepared to make the mind walk. As he entered, however, he was covered by a sense of dread. Looking behind him, he saw a giant cage, and immediately stopped. From behind the bars rose a giant nine-tailed fox. The Kyuubi growled at the Yamanaka, and said in a mighty voice, "Foolish human. Have you forgotten he is a Jinchuriki? I'm the yang part of Kyuubi's chakra. My yin counterpart is sealed inside that foolish girl. I will help you, mortal, if for anything, for the fact of who he is the father of." With that said, the Kyuubi showed him the way towards the memory. He was doubly terrified when he saw just what was the reason for Naruto's mistreating. He quickly got back to reality and shouted, "Hokage-sama!" In a cave 10 miles away, a masked man was banging his head on the wall, while shouting desperately, "Damn you, Naruto! Why won't you just fit in my plans? I've tried to kill you, I've ended up almost cut in two by you, I tried to turn you to our side, but I ended up making you a stronger enemy. How the hell do you do that? I even made that goddamn genjutsu so you would be ignored by your parents and peers, so that you would hate Konoha, yet you ended up loyal on Buu Captain. Just why does Kami hate me so much?" The man had an orange mask, with only one eye visible, that at the moment was twitching nervously. Nagato was supposed to be coming soon to report on his Akatsuki organization, the one he hoped he could fit Naruto in, if he wasn't a loyal ninja. Sighing, he decided he was going to wait until someone did something to get on his toes, so that Naruto might go missing then. Yeah, that was the best plan ever. Back at the academy, Naruto and Itachi were currently making bets on who will win at the Taijutsu spar, Mito or Sasuke. Mito attacked with a high kick, under which Sasuke dodged before sending a roundhouse kick to her back, making her fall forward, before she put her hands on the ground and pushed herself so that she flipped and rotated so she landed 2 meters away. During this display, however, Sasuke appeared right in front of her and sent a punch towards her face. She barely dodged under it and sent a kick under Sasuke's chin, which he blocked with his forearm, before flipping over her back and falling in a stance. Sasuke attacked this time, trying to take her feet away, but she jumped over it and sent something similar to the dynamic entry towards his head. He however caught her foot and threw her in the wall, out of the arena, winning. Next was shuriken and kunai throws, which both Sasuke and Mito mastered so they could throw 5 bullseyes in 5 shots. So no trouble. They all slept through the lecture, boring as usual. The chakra control exercises made them raise an eyebrow, especially the older ones who didn't actually stay so much in the academy as to come across what they teach. That was more or less the entire day, and Naruto, Itachi and Akane were thanking all the gods that they graduated on their first try. Minato was currently gazing at the desk in front of him, on his face a thoughtful look of the likes those he had when he was creating the Hirashin. "So the Shinigami has left me alive, and because of that I got to keep the part of Kyuubi I wanted to seal in his stomach." That explication was simple, leaving only a question: how the hell was he alive? He was ready to give up his life. What could have changed that? The only thing he remembered was Naruto shouting at the Shinigami, "It can't be." He thought as he arrived at a conclusion. Naruto somehow convinced the Shinigami not to take his soul. He decided to discuss that with his son further at a later date. Now he had another thought that made him happy: he didn't neglect his son of his own volition. That was more than he had hoped for. The fact that the one who made the genjutsu was probably Madara, or the fact that he had no countermeasures for it, not important at the moment. He couldn't wait to get home and tell Kushina. He imagined his son being happy that his parents weren't actually hating him. Oh, just how wrong he was. He had no time to further think of that. He had a meeting to prepare. Apparently, with all the madness around Naruto, he had completely forgot of the 5 Kage daimyo's meeting. It was more important than usual for one reason: all the kids of the leaders were attending. He sighed as he looked at the list. Kazekage had his son Gaara, the high priestess was bringing her daughter Shien, the Tsuchikage was bringing his granddaughter Kurotsuchi, the daimyo of snow was bringing his daughter Koyuki, the daimyo of vegetables was bringing Haruna, and the daimyo of the land of birds was bringing Toki. Most of them didn't seem the kind that would lower themselves to play with civilians, aside from Gaara, who if he understood right was a Jinchuriki, so he would play with anyone, Shien who was kept away for her visions, and Koyuki who was a girl who liked to mix in a crowd. He frowned. Kurotsuchi he just knew was gonna have a cat fight with Mito because he and Aniki were enemies. Toki was probably going to just smile and stay in a corner, and last but not least Haruna was probably going to look at everyone like they were gonna kill her. He decided to tell Naruto about the genjutsu after the meeting, before going to Konoha's gates where crowds were gathering. 20 minutes later, Kushina sighed as she looked at the children moving around. Shien and Naruto were looking strangely at the catfight between Mito and Kurotsuchi. Toki and Haruna were trying to create a conversation, and were failing epically, while Yuki was trying to eavesdrop on the Kage meeting. Shien suddenly stilled, and her eyes moved like a kaleidoscope. Naruto, hearing of her future telling, used his kitsune abilities to see what she saw. Then, with a speed that even Kushina couldn't see, he entered the kitchen where the meeting was and threw a kunai at a bottle of sake. The cage were taken aback at this, as the kunai aimed itself in the bottle Dodo, Koyuki's uncle, was carrying. When the sake fell on the ground, it melted the floor, shocking the ones present. How did you know it was poisoned? Asked the scared Dodo. Naruto smiled and said, "It's nice to have a fortune teller on a team." As the Kages were looking questioningly at him, Miraku sent out a healthy laugh, and, after catching her breath, said, "So little Shion got her first vision? Didn't expect her to get one at such a young age, but oh well. Still, you must tell me, how did you get her to talk about it?" Most priestess fall unconscious at their first vision. She got more amazed with each word she said, and only let Naruto talk because the Kages stopped her from talking. As Naruto was about to invent some reason, Shion came in holding her head with her hand. "What hit me?" she asked, looking up to her mother, who raised an eyebrow, and looked at Naruto. I heard of the fortune-telling abilities, so when I saw her eyes I knew something was wrong." She then mumbled something about Dodo and poison, "So I just decided to do something once I get here." When I saw the bottle, I knew what she meant. He finished with a smirk. The leaders were staring at him in awe. "It's not every day a 13-year-old stops a war kid, you should be proud," said the Raikage. Naruto sighed and decided to humor him. "Been there, done that, didn't even get a t-shirt to prove it," he said jokingly, though it was true. The Kages were looking at him like he grew a second head, more so the Hokage. "You did this before?" asked the Hokage. Naruto facepalmed. "Just look at my mission's reports. Add Hinata's rescue from kidnapping and you're done," he said, looking at his Hokage not father. "Nope, defiantly not," with a face of disappointment, mirrored by the Kages who thought as one. Kids wasting his talent. After that, Naruto went back, and explained everything to Kushina and the other kids, who he decided, must know about such things. As he looked around, he saw Koyuki had a sad face. Deciding he didn't have anything better to do, he went to see what was wrong. "Why the long face?" he asked. The girl looked at him with her eyes almost tearing. I don't think I have what it takes to be a daimyo," said the girl with a sad voice. "I can't order people around. I'm scared by my own shadow and can't win a shogi game against a cat." Towards the end she started crying. Naruto smiled softly and pulled her in a hug, letting her cry on his shoulder. He looked at her with a mischievous grin and rose up. "Who told you that?" he asked. The girl responded shortly, "Uncle said so." Naruto looked at her like at a student and said in a soft tone, "Girl, if everyone is against you, look them straight in the eyes and tell them to fuck off. That's my code, now and forever." The last part he added almost shouting, his voice confident, showing experience and wisdom, but also recklessness and courage. The girl looked at him with newfound respect. Same goes for the other kids. Even Gaara, who was unnoticed, seemed to look at him with a slight gleam. In that second, however, as Mito looked at Naruto, Kurotsuchi tried to hit her with a kunai she took from her pouch. When the kunai was inches from the girl, red chakra appeared in front of it and caught it in the air. Gaara's reaction, or better said Shukaku's, was to jump and attack with his sand towards the chakra. Shukaku and Kurama were anything but friends. They had been fighting ever since the Rikudo-Sennin created them. Shukaku was annoying, reckless and loud, while Kurama was intelligent, calculated and silent. Even her yang counterpart wasn't so bad. He was much like a combination between Mito and Sasuke, having Sasuke's pride and Mito's friendliness and cluelessness, though he was stupider than both. The sand was stopped halfway when it was cut in two by an invisible sword, and Gaara found himself held in place by chakra chains and with a kunai at his neck. Naruto held his kunai in his left hand and made one-hand seals with the other, a trick he picked up from a friend named Haku. Unlike what most thought, it wasn't that he had no friends, just not in Konoha. After finishing the seals he shouted, "Gagyofu in 5 elements seal," and slammed his hand in Gaara's stomach. All this time, technically 3 seconds, the others, including an astonished Kushina, looked at Naruto with awe. He had just moved at cage-level speed, made a seal less shout less jutsu, restrained an opponent before they could blink, and made a complicated jutsu with one-handed seals. That sounded strange no matter who you were talking about. Kyuubi grinned at the boy's reaction. "I taught him well," he thought, just to forget the mental link between her and Naruto, who responded, "You didn't teach me shit. Well, you did teach me kitsune abilities and helped me with jutsus, but my speed I gained it myself." Same with the chakra chains. Akane sighed. It was true. But couldn't she just get proud of her student/boyfriend/partner/fellow Anbu? After like 2 hours that passed by uneventfully, Aside from Naruto summoning Akane to help him, he summoned her outside. Of course, the meeting ended, and Minato and Kushina decided to tell Naruto about the genjutsu. Not knowing the kid just didn't leave, wanting to hear what was so interesting. Minato cleared his throat and looked at the floor before suddenly meeting Naruto's half-angry half-curious glance. Maybe he's finally gonna say he was sorry and start making some frickin' amends. Thought Naruto with a small smile appearing. "What is it, Hokage-sama, Kushina-san?" he asked in his emotionless voice. The kids outside cringed. Of course they had heard about Naruto's life. He was a legend in the making, and were silently praying that Minato and Kushina finally see him. Of course, Minato had to be an idiot with what he said. You see Naruto? About ignoring you. We were actually under a genjutsu that made us ignore you." The Kage's face faulted, face-palmed and started chuckling at the same time. It wasn't what he said but how he said it. Naruto was worse off though. A genjutsu? Yeah right, and what's next? Madara made it? Or it was made using Kyuubi's chakra? Or maybe you were told by Yankyubi-kun? Who the hell came up with this excuse? Kakashi? Naruto said, releasing killing intent, while Minato was busy wondering if Naruto had fortune-telling abilities, making Kushina fell on her back and slowly leave. Akane was trembling in excitement. Having a human body increased her sensitivity towards killing intent, and while she didn't have such a bloodthirstiness, she still wanted to jump on Naruto when he had such power. As Naruto's anger increased, he had to fight the urge to activate his most powerful abilities. No, he could not use them. He had to keep his power hidden. During his struggle, Minato and Kushina could see him change. His hair had a few red strands, he had whisker marks on his cheeks, fangs were growing and so were his nails. They could feel the chakra he had. No, it wasn't chakra. It was Yuki. Pure Yuki. And it was pouring out of a human? That was impossible. At a speed that made the Hiroshin seem like slow motion, he ran out through the wall. The Kages could only say one thing: screw this shit. That guy is powerful enough to level a country. His legends do him no justice. Naruto, meanwhile, had run towards his only relaxed point, forgetting just what he had to pass through: Konoha's Red District, those that hated him the most. As he ran, he slowed down, until he was running at civilian speed. As not to anger the Anbu. The civilians didn't care. Look, it's the failure. And it's that disgraceful thing. Were the shouts. Now he no longer cared. He ran like mad, some not even knowing something passed by them. Akane was also charging full speed, but she knew that, in his stance, he was more powerful than her four-tailed form. If only Nagi was here. Shit. She thought as she saw Naruto exit through Konoha's gates. She knew where he was going. There was only one place he ever had peace at, the Valley of the End. As she finally arrived, she looked at the waterfall and let out a smile. This was where he first summoned her, and also the last time he showed weakness, the last time he truly cried, when he let it all go, when his mask last broke. Now it was going to be happening again. She remembered, and let a tear appear in her eye. She could remember how she saw the kid cry, how she hugged him, how he told her how he was treated, that he just wished to be acknowledged. She remembered saying calming things, reminding him that he had her, Itachi, his teammate Hana and people like Haku, and I'm gonna say Haku is Naruto's age. That was right after the Chunin exams, but before his sister found out he existed beyond as a guardian for her. She slowly walked up on Hashirama's statue, thinking on what to do, before deciding to just repeat what she did last time, only a little different. Naruto heard the footsteps but didn't need to turn around. There was only one person who could keep up with him, Akane. He didn't want to look at her. He expected to find disappointment and anger. That line of thought was blown by the wind as he felt two arms hanging around his neck, and he heard a voice call for him. Calm down, Naruto. Calm down, she said in a soft tone. You got me, Itachi, your sister, Haku, Nagi, and all your subordinates, not to mention your friends outside. What would Suigetsu say if he saw you now? She added the last part as a joke. Naruto had become good friends with the swordsman, and if he ever was in doubt, that guy would get him up in no time. Same with Nagi. Naruto smiled as he thought about Nagi-Okyo, Akane's brother. If Akane looked like his mother, Nagi looked like his father, except with red hair and his mother's attitude when not talking with humans. He considered himself superior to anyone, not counting the Baijuas, Naruto, and Rikudo. He always wore a white cloak and a staff where he could channel chakra to make his jutsu more powerful. He, just like Akane, had a human mate, a blonde-haired kunoichi named Erika, the daughter of some daimyo that was too far away to come to the meeting. No one knew aside from Erika, but he was Kyuubi's yang part, as Akane was the yin part. Naruto smiled as he remembered what his true family was: Akane, Nagi, and Itachi. Those were his family, and they were all he needed. Naruto sighed as he walked over one of the bridges in the Uchiha's district, dragging an unconscious Itachi by the collar. He was coming to take the Uchiha heir to Anbu for a new mission, when he heard him muttering something about massacring the Uchiha. Needless to say, Naruto, who had made it his second most important mission to reconnect Itachi with his family that had also been like his own, was angry enough to beat Itachi, heal him, and beat him again. He was sure that Itachi would wake up, and explain just what the fuck was he thinking, and stop before he did something he regretted. Meanwhile, Akane was trying to look anywhere but at Naruto, and that was for 3 reasons: pride, embarrassment, and season. Yep, it was the mating season for Kitsune, and Akane tried to hold herself in. The pride was because she tried to look angry at Naruto for his mistakes the day before. After calming him down, she had scolded him quite harshly. His body had quite some burns from using Yuki without his normal filter, and the shouts were actually whispers, but his Yuki-enhanced hearing decided to play him a prank, and further enhance itself. The embarrassment came from what had happened that morning. Akane dragged Naruto to her apartment the evening before, and fell asleep with her Mindscape-made clothes, which only lasted 12 hours before disappearing. So, naturally, when Naruto woke up next to a naked Akane, he couldn't maintain his cool face before shrieking like he saw a ghost. She, as the vixen she was, found that embarrassing, more so the fact that, instead of Naruto coming closer because of her attractiveness, he said something she didn't hear before going to the bathroom. "If he wasn't my mate, I would have thought he was gay," she thought, looking at Naruto. But then again, there is that sexy jutsu. Yay, that must have been the thing. He is used to this enough to resist me. Itachi, waking up, thought only one thing: goddamn Naruto. That colleague of his had really given him a beating, and he thanked all gods Naruto didn't appear after he started, for he would be in a 2-month coma by now, if he was alive. As they walked, or were dragged in Itachi's case, they felt a familiar chakra signature. "Shisui?" asked Naruto and Itachi in a chore. The boy looked bad, really bad. He was full of blood, most of which was his own, and almost got one of his eyes bulged out. The 3 Anbu captains were in defensive stances, Akane going to heal the Uchiha, while Naruto created shadow clones to confuse and defend against the enemy, and Itachi put a gene just to hide them all. Shisui thanked all the gods he knew, from Amaterasu to Yami, that he met those 3. Akane was the second best healer in the leaf if you counted Tsunade, who tended to leave and come on a whim. Itachi had the Mangekyo, just like him, so he could help with his near blindness, and Naruto was strong enough to hold back the entire Leaf Village, so no Root had a chance to get him. Then Pantke Rikadu. "Heavy pants, I thought Danzo got me there," said Shisui, barely getting out the words, spitting blood when he finished. Akane's hands flashed green, before combining with her Yuki to perform her most powerful healing techniques. Shisui sensed his scars healing themselves at a rapid pace, and his eyes were suddenly getting a lot more chakra thanks to an eye-to-eye transfer from Itachi's eyes. Naruto, on the other hand, was currently looking at the root he had found. There were 3 of them, and he was not only at full power, but angry. They barely stood a chance. The first found himself headless courtesy of Akaze no Yaiba wind sword. The second one was impaled by 5 spiky-ended chakra chains, and the third one found himself covered in explosive tags, which exploded 2 seconds later. You never mess with anyone Naruto considers a friend and escape, even if you are a Kage or Baijuo. If you don't believe him, ask Yagura, the 4th Mizukage, in the afterlife. He took the heads of 2 of the Anbu, seeing as the third one was ashes, and put them into a scroll, so he could give them to the Anbu commander, Kakashi. Shisui was pretty goddamn angry, now that he was healed. He couldn't believe Danzo did something like that, yet no one could point at him for it. The root was disbanded, so no one could say Danzo was the leader. There was also the fact that his Sharingan was reaching its breaking point, so he had to lower its usage, or get an eternal, which was hard as you needed one of your blood for it, a cousin or a sibling. With only Itachi and Shisui being here, one would have to give up his eyes unless. How could I be so fucking stupid? Shisui thought angrily. All they needed to do was swap eyes. Yes, it was that freaking simple. "Hey Itachi, how about we sweep eyes so we both get the eternal Mangekyo?" asked Shisui. Itachi started brooding, to a level his brother would be proud. He was a genius, yet he never thought of that. Akane just did it so quickly they neither noticed something happened excepting they saw everything even better. Naruto came back at the bridge, congratulated the 2 for their new eyes and promised them a party later on after he reported this to the HQ, then told Itachi and Akane to follow him to take on a new mission. They had a long enough pause after all. The journey had been silent, each to their own thoughts, and when they entered the headquarters that silence was sent to the other Anbu, who stopped their discussions. with good reason seeing as the meeting had left quite a few changes. Naruto had blood on himself from his battle, Akane had blood on her hands from Shisui, and Itachi had his badass new eyes. That attracted attention from the others. The three weren't on a mission, meaning they killed someone in Konoha, further enforced by the two scrolls Naruto held in his hands. Kakashi looked up from his Icha Icha book to Naruto and started thanking the gods of Icha Icha that the three had come to help him because he had a mission for Naruto and Akane and something to discuss with Itachi. Noticing the eternal in Itachi's eyes, he started crying anime tears about the unfairness of life and the new generation's luck. Naruto picked up his mission and had only one thing to say: awesomeness just didn't cut it. He was going to be an escort to the Kages. Of course, no one knew that during the meeting, things happened too fast for anyone to observe Naruto as anyone but the kitsune he was introduced as. No one noticed him as Uzumaki Arashi, his codename for missions. If they did, things would have gone differently. The Mizukage, Mei Terumi, would have started swooning over him again. The Raikage would have invited him to a bottle of sake and the Kazekage and Tsuchikage would have looked at him with respect. Uzumaki Arashi had done a lot of S ranks and SS ranks outside the village, holding the record for most SS ranks in 3 years, 7 missions that required a team of 4 S-rank ninja or more, including everything from annihilation to recon or overthrowing of governments like with Yagura. He was also sure that with the Kages were their Jinchuriki, Kazekage came with his son, Garaa, holder of good old Shukaku. Raikage brought Yugito and Killer Bee, containers of Matatabi and Gyuki. Mizukage put the Sanbi in a pot before he got his name. Tsuchikages were god knows where with the Bee and Gobi. Utakata was probably strolling around the village with his Rakubi. Fu was going to be on him any second with Chomei, being one of his fangirls, just like Yugito, and Mito was probably at the academy with Akane. Now meeting them was something he couldn't wait for, having made friends with most of the above mentioned. The fangirls were gonna keep their distance as long as Akane was with them, and Shukaku can be Yuled and defeat him in a straight battle, so he had nothing to worry about. They were a friendly bunch most of the time. He had to stop his long daydream to dodge a green missile of some kind, that, after missing its target, hit into a wall of bricks, destroying it. On closer inspection, the missile had wings, and looked humanoid a little, which could mean only one thing. "You scared me there, Fu-chan," said Naruto said in an amused tone, while making sure to avoid a second missile, which was probably Chomei in human form. Naruto hadn't been the only one to use a summoning contract from a Baijuu. Arashi didn't keep the knowledge from Jinchuriki, so Fu, Yugito and Killer Bee had their own Baijuu friend. Fu and Chomei, who landed next to her, jumped up at Arashi's voice and looked at the boy with their eyes sparkling. "That was an awesome dodge, Arashi-kun, but I'll get you next time," she proclaimed with a face-splitting grin. Naruto sighed. The girl was a tomboy like Kushina, same with Chomei, so he had to take care. She got him once, and broke 2 of his ribs while sending him through a wall. Not a pretty sight at all. As soon as that was said, Fu and Naruto turned to look at an amazing sight. Akane was talking to the green-haired Baijuu and to another girl with long blue hair in a ponytail. The fact that she stood in an animalistic position and had slitted eyes hinted the blonde-haired Onbu that the girl was Matatabi, the two-tailed cat. Behind her was a blonde-haired girl with her hair in a similar ponytail. Naruto recognized her as Yugito, the Jinchuriki of the above-mentioned Baijuu. Next to her was a brown-skinned man, with 8 swords on his back and sunglasses that was writing in a notebook while humming to himself. Naruto remembered him as the Raikage's brother Killer Bee. Behind him was a purple-haired boy with long spiky hair that was singing to himself while mimicking playing a guitar. Naruto and Akane sweet-dropped, with Akane sending a mental explication. The guy was Gyuki, the 8-tailed ox, and a good friend of Kyuubi's. When the Baijus were only just born, they were all friends. They were Rikudo's children, siblings with Madara, Hashirama, Izuna, and Tobirama. Of course, after Rikudo died, they stood together for only 3 years before separating. Kurama had been good friends with Gyuki and Matatabi, and eternal enemy of Shukaku, though some claimed they acted like a married couple sometimes, constantly bickering and fighting. Strangely, it was Madara who usually stopped those discussions, and only Kurama knew why. The only one left was Mito, since Utakata was probably going to stay out and the rest couldn't show up. The Kages walked into the meeting of long-lost friends/siblings happily. Each of them had a different amount of happiness in their smiles. Mei Mizukage was smiling like it was her birthday. Raikage had cheeky smile like he won a bet. Oonoki Tsuchikage had a small smile that seemed almost sad, and the Kazekage hid his smile that seemed planning. Minato had a worried look, knowing Naruto was there, and that he might make a scene. When they saw Naruto/Arashi, they had quite the reactions. Mei moved at light speed to hug him, bumped fists with him, Oonoki gave his respect and got it back while the no-name Kazekage bowed his head, and Naruto responded the same way. Minato looked at him and gulped, only for Naruto to bow his head and emotionlessly say Minato-sama. After getting Mei off Naruto, they presented the rest of their ninja. Oonoki had brought Akatsuchi, Kazekage brought Garaa and Baki, Minato had Naruto and Akane while Mei brought two very interesting people, Zabuza and Haku. After Yagura was killed, they came back with Naruto and became Miss Nin again. Zabuza was a jounin now, and a damn good one too. He would get his own team soon enough after he left his bloodlust behind completely. Haku was a chunin and was going to participate in the jounin exams pretty soon too. Naruto and the two met on a mission where they had a common goal that was too hard for either to do, so they teamed up, succeeding it that way. He also helped with Haku's elemental training and received lessons on one-handed seals himself. As the Jinchuriki, Jounins, Onbus and Chunins told stories of their own adventures, the Kages were talking about the Jinchuriki. Mei thought they should be treated normally, if a little better. Minato and Ei thought they should be heroes that defend the village, while Oonoki and the Kazekage thought of them as weapons. Also, I wanted to show off his by making one huge spar with all the Jinchuriki present. Kazekage picked it up so fast he didn't finish yet while Minato shrugged it off to ask the girl. The discussion later wandered off to possible threats, sealing techniques and population problems. Mito, not having access to either conversation, wandered off a little too much, and ended up outside Konoha through means we will never know. There, she had the luck to stumble upon villagers plotting her demise. They were 30, and they seemed happy, too happy, almost as if something was on that she didn't know about. Suddenly, she received a mental message that stated, "Dispel it." She did as she was told and was scared when she discovered that the 30 were actually Iwarogen. It was too late though, as they jumped her the next second, or they would have if she didn't suddenly feel something that sent all the nin away, and she was pulled in the mindscape. There sat her brother, Naruto, watching the Kyuubi. As if on a cue he ran to the seal and turned to her. "You have 5 minutes, we most probably will arrive in 6. In those 5 take out as many as you can," he shouted. In the next second she found herself enveloped in a yellow cloak, and she felt her power spike. When she saw one of Nin's, she ran with a yellow flash and knocked him out. Seeing that the others were preparing an earth wall, she reacted instinctually. She created a tailed beast bomb. When the bomb impacted with the wall it killed 10 of the ninja and knocked the others down, but she didn't stop until they were knocked out completely. Just as the reinforcements arrived and her cloak disappeared. As soon as he saw Mito, Naruto let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. When she disappeared she scared everyone in the village. He felt bad that she had her first kill at age 8, though he wasn't much better, but using Akane's chakra may have her over it. After his minor heart attack passed, Minato went back to the place where the others were discussing the situation, and he knew they were disappointed at least a little. He let an important ninja out of Konoha in the claws of her own worst enemies. He had to get it to weigh attention, damn it. There was another situation in another part of the village however. The Madara wannabe was currently fighting the entire Uchiha clan, and could say he was doing well. Sure, things could have been better. Oh, who was he kidding? This was the second worst day of his life, not counting when he saw Rin die. That morning he discovered that Itachi was stopped by Naruto, so he had to do the deed himself. Then, on the way to the district, he almost got his eye clawed out by Tora. How the fuck was that thing alive? He was sure the Shodaime had caught it at some point in time, and was starting to think that it might be Juubi in disguise, or maybe it was a cat Jinchuriki. Anyway, after defeating Tora, he left towards the district, only to be hit by fucking falling earth. How the holy fucking grandma on a stick did earth fly all the way to the middle of Konoha? After finally getting to the Uchiha district, he was almost hit by a stray fireball courtesy of one Uchiha Sasuke, who the holy fudge thought it was a good idea to teach kids a C-rank technique. When he started massacring the Uchiha, things were starting to look up, until the clan had proved to be better than he thought. When he tried using Kamui, Fugaku used Izanagi to appear behind and hit him in the shoulder with a poisoned kunai. He wasn't weak enough to succumb to poison however and killed the man. Thinking he finally won, he almost crapped himself when his mask suddenly burst into black flames sent by the matriarch, Uchiha Mikado. He sent the Amaterasu away via Kamui, and stopped to stare at the woman. She clearly had the Mangekyo Sharingan, but there was something strange about it. She had a red star for the model, but the rest of the eye was white, like the Byakugan. His reaction gave Mikado time to send a chakra flare to announce something was happening, and attacked the masked man with a katana, but as soon as her katana touched his hand, it disappeared. Hoping her plan worked, she kicked him, only for him to become ethereal, before he let out a scream of pain, making Mikado smirk. How? he asked, holding his hand over his cracked ribs. "Elementary, Obito Baka," she shouted, bonking him on the head. She had recognized his voice and chakra signature easily, having been looking for him when he was younger. "Your jutsu allows you to put things in another dimension, but you only have one other dimension," she shouted. "So my katana that was filled with exploding tags exploded in the same dimension where your body was," she added, like she was talking to a kid, although he was about her age. The man had been so shocked he didn't notice the Rasengan coming from his right side, throwing him into a wall. In front of him stood the future Sanins, although Naruto was the closest to him. The blonde shouted to the other two, "Akane, go tell the Hokage about our situation. Itachi, look for other survivors. I'm taking this guy." Obito clenched his teeth as he looked at the boy who looked so much like his ex-sensei, and couldn't help but growl at how problematic this was. He probably could beat the boy with ease, but he had reinforcements. He couldn't run, however, since the boy must have been as fast as his father, if not faster. He couldn't concentrate enough to teleport either, as Mikado would be on him because of her Majekyo Sharingan Byakugan hybrid eyes. Cursing, he put his chains like he did 8 years ago. He wasn't going down again. The boy threw kunai in every direction, and one cage kunai bunshine later, the area was filled with kunai. They weren't Hiroshin kunai, so he wasn't worried. Just like last time, the two charged and Naruto passed through Obito, but before he was caught by the chain he substituted with a kunai. Obito growled in frustration, this was just too annoying. Naruto used Cage Bunshine and sent the two clones to attack the Uchiha, who destroyed them with ease. The two stared each other in the eyes before Naruto charged with the Rasengan, but not before throwing two kunai at Obito, who also charged. Obito thought this was his victory as his hand would touch Naruto's neck. However, when he made contact, Naruto puffed out of existence and the kunai transformed into Naruto's, one holding a Rasengan while the other had the kanji for eye on his hand. Both hit Obito and he was sent inside a building. Wanting to have the high ground, the Uchiha jumped on a roof, but suddenly air exploded in front of him as Naruto appeared with a shout of wind sunshine. At some point during the battle, Akane and the Hokage arrived, but decided to grab some popcorn and watch the fight since Naruto handled it all right. Naruto's legs were covered in yuki as one of them crashed in Obito's abdomen, sending him flying and breaking a few ribs, but before he had time to somersault he was kicked under the chin like at the beginning of a lotus, before a Naruto who was flipping forward smashed a yuki-enhanced kick in his face, breaking his mask and his nose. If Obito had time to think, he would wonder why he couldn't go ethereal, but since he had none he focused on escaping. As he stared at the Uchiha, Naruto decided to finish off with a genjutsu/kenjutsu combination. He quickly went through a few hand seals before muttering, "Demonic illusion, Devil's Way." What Obito saw next would have scared the shit out of anyone. Naruto started releasing triple S ranked ki at him, and he started to grow ears and a tail as well. It felt so scary he couldn't even move. He felt like the Shinigami would have been pissed off at him. As the boy was closing in, he threw a fireball at him, only for it to not affect him at all. Seeing it was useless, Obito just stared as his death was closing in, before he heard the words of a jutsu, Fuuten, Kazukiri no Jutsu. All those present saw that Obito was now headless, and his head was in Naruto's hand. Before they could celebrate, however, Obito's body disappeared in thin air. Everyone watched shocked, not comprehending how he left, before Itachi decided to answer for them. Izanagi, a technique that allows the user to turn back time in a way. Although sad that they couldn't catch the missing nin, who would be put in the bingo book, they returned to either whatever they were doing or cleaning the district. The Namikaze were the most interesting though. Now that he had some peace, although he was sure the Kidges were gonna kill him, he decided to start apologizing to his son for all that happened, so they could be a happy family soon. Naruto had no such thoughts, however, and had come to the Namikaze mansion for other reasons. He walked straight past the family and into his room. There, he started putting his more important stuff into storage scrolls. Mito, who watched from the door, knew immediately what was happening and just couldn't let it happen. She ran to him crying while saying things along the lines of, "Don't leave and stay," but he didn't even rethink as he took his scrolls and went out the door of his room. Minato and Kushina were oblivious to all of that, and, when they saw him leaving, they immediately interrogated him. Naruto didn't answer with more than "I'm leaving," but his mother just had to put a very good line. "You still live in this house, Sochi? We still need to know where you go." Naruto smirked hearing that and responded simply, "Lived, Kushina-san. Lived." Then he added, "I'm moving in with Akane." Kushina, Minato and Mito tried to stop him, but his wind sunshine was too fast. As soon as he did the jutsu however, he remembered that he could only do it 3 times a day before he fell unconscious because of pressure. Phew. It seemed like a good day in Konoha. The sun was up and smiling and it was warm as in spring. Coupled with a weak wind, it seemed like a perfect day. Of course, that would be if you don't count the tens of patrols and searches around, and every civilian and shinobi watching their backs every second, watching for either Iwa-Ronin or Obito Uchiha. The village was on high alert because of the events that had happened the last day, coupled with quite a depletion. They had not only lost the entire Uchiha clan, but all the high-ups were missing to a point. Kitsune was in a long sleep, with many problems that most didn't wait to hear all of. Wolf was with him, and also had a case of chakra poisoning, while Itachi was getting used to his eternal, since he was supposed to stay a few weeks with his eyes covered. And finally Kakashi was drinking his ass off about the good times when he was on a team with Obito and Rin. Tsunade, the head of the hospital, was out of town, searching for herbs and medications. Sake, Jiraiya was also out doing research, and Orochimaru. We all know what he was doing, but the Konoha shinobi didn't have a clue. Minato, who the Anbu found out after 3 fucking years was Kitsune's father, was currently watching over Naruto alongside Kushina. Mito and Akane was holding Naruto's hand, trying to connect with him psychically. Minato himself was wondering about something else, as it was strange that Akane and Naruto seemed to have been together for way longer than others thought. "When have you two met?" he asked Akane, who, after the initial shock, got an almost tired look in her eyes as she eyed Naruto. "When he was 6, she answered in a somber voice. Minato had expected a lot of things, but this? Never in his life. "How?" asked Kushina, entering the conversation. She was fascinated about this already. Were they childhood friends then? Akane winced, undoubtedly getting memories that hurt either her or Naruto. "Why the hell is it so hard for me to remember this?" she thought as she remembered the thing they came up with and the truth. "I wasn't allowed in the orphanage, because they said I was either too old, or it was full," she responded and gripped Naruto's hand a little too much. "And when I talked to other kids, I was usually shunned away for my hair because they said I looked like QB," she said, trembling with anger, since it had actually happened at one point. Minato was pale as he heard what she said, but Kushina was livid. This girl had it way worse than her. How can you compare a girl with QB based on hair color? She thought, ready to break some heads. "How did you meet Naruto then?" Mito added her 2 cents. Everyone looked at her to see her eyes had a slight tear, but she was trying to remain stoic, knowing pity wouldn't help the girl. "He was just like me, having been considered a failure next to his sister, coupled with his rather silent behavior. He was always shunned away, though sometimes he didn't even want T to play," she said as she felt herself sobbing, though she couldn't really understand why. Sure, she played the girlfriend role, but that didn't happen that way. She wasn't emotional because he was the summoner either, so why? The fact that he was her mate was only political, so he could learn the famous sage mode and so she could get away from her suitors that were getting very annoying. The Namikaze looked at her and then looked down in shame, for it had been their mistake. When someone said Naruto was a failure, they listened, were disappointed and never cared again. "So you two met and played and became friends?" asked a hopeful Kushina, only for Akane to shake her head. "No, he found me starving in a dark alley like a half-dead dog that no one cared about and took me to a secret hideout of his," she said, looking up at the adults that were too shocked to say anything, trying to imagine the girl in front of them as a weak girl in a dark alley, and found it close to impossible. "Amazing how I'm lying and yet not lying. I was technically that way shortly after Rikuto-san passed away and was saved by Madara, but that happened another way," thought Akane, honestly amazed at the story Naruto came up with. "Yay, I'm good at this, aren't I?" She almost jumped off the bed hearing Naruto's thoughts, which meant that he was starting to wake up from his stress enough to hear her thoughts. Naruto had passed through a lot of stress, coupled with a chakra exhaustion. Yuki burns from when he unlocked the seal on Mito, and even bigger burns on his feet after he used Yuki against Obito, not to mention the immense pressure of the seal-less wind Sunshin, and the fact that he lost his concentration and appeared on top of the Hokage tower from where he fell on his back and broke quite a few bones. He also got hit by some of the earth that Mito blew up, and got a punch or two from Akane after he unlocked the seal for being an idiot, as it had been very risky. The stress had been pretty justified. Akane's reaction, Shisui's problem, the cage meeting, Mito's disappearance, defeating Obito and leaving his house had caused a lot of stress. But let's get back on track, shall we? What? asked Kushina, not able to understand how that happened. "I didn't have money and no one cared about me until I met Naruto, who took me to a secret hideout he had bought with his allocation that was pretty big. I woke up on a warm bed for the first time and he gave me food, and I've been there ever since. I still live there after 7 years." As she said this, Kushina and Minato were filled with pride at what their child has done, but then thought of something else. How did you live there? You didn't make any money, so even with a warm bed you still needed food, Minato said confused, since the girl was probably poor back then in that apartment. The girl sighed and started explaining in detail. It wasn't only once that he gave me food, it happened every day. He took care of me until I entered the academy. He didn't need the food since you made food for him, she said slowly, as if explaining something that was very complicated. The two were so stunned they froze right there for a few moments, barely even breathing. Their child was like a saint, helping a poor girl so much. But then they noticed something strange. The girl was now exhaling pure killing intent, as she was filled with anger. All had been alright until a certain day, the 10th of October, 5 years ago, she said, clenching her teeth. I will never forget that day, she said. What truly happened was this. Flashback. Naruto walked slowly, balancing like a zombie, towards the apartment where Akane lived, his hands bleeding from how tight his punches were, though no one could notice over the whole bloodied mess that was once a blonde-haired kid. He had blood coming out of his mouth and broken nose, cuts all over his body, and a few burn marks on his face, but that was nothing compared to his mental state, as there was nothing he was thinking about, nothing he would do or plan to, nothing. He was empty like a trash bin, walking on autopilot towards the only safe haven he had. Akane was terrified when she saw him. Never in her 400 years had she seen an 8-year-old look so much like a zombie. Heck, she didn't see anyone less than 20 move like that. He looked like someone who lost everything, like someone who wanted nothing more than to just die. Oh, how she wished she wasn't right. As he entered the apartment, he stood for 4 minutes before throwing her a bag of money, then giving her a kunai and saying only this, "Kill me." Akane had horrified eyes as she looked at him. How could he ask something like that? The boy had such determination, yet now looked like an old man who wanted nothing more than eternal peace, like someone who had seen everything his life meant die in front of his eyes. She was trembling, scared of what could have caused this, but she had her answer from Naruto after 10 minutes. All you wanted was a body and money, now kill me. It's not like anyone is gonna miss me. Throw my body on the window, burn it with a katana and be done with it. He said, emotionless to anything. I have no friends. Akane-sama, please do this for me, he added in the same way, then spoke in a soft tone. You can take my body if you want to, but this body is kind of destroyed and male, so I don't think so. The girl was frightened. Never in her life had Akane, Kurama or even the Juubi felt this way. It was like a puzzle that had no sense whatsoever. He just handed her the kunai, closed his eyes tight and biting his lips so he wouldn't scream from pain. But no pain came. Instead came a question. What about Itachi? Won't he miss you? The girl asked, trembling like a leaf. The boy had a sad look in his eyes as he said, he was never my friend, he just wanted to stay with me because I was a namikaze. Now there is no such reason. Naruto, of course, had no idea that Itachi was actually a henchman. As she heard this, she dropped the kunai and, to Naruto's confusion, hugged him. Akane-hime? He said using a polite but friendlier suffix. If you have no friends, then I will be yours, she said as she let Naruto cry for a little. She only had a body that was technically a blood clone, but she still had a feeling she felt his tears, though it may have been her imagination. The boy cried himself to sleep, and, checking through his mind, Akane discovered he was beaten by drunk villagers. End flashback. As the Namikazes heard a slightly edited version, they were so shocked that Mito fainted. Kushina was staring with tears forming in her eyes, and Minato stood there, trembling in fury at what happened. How could they do this? How could the villagers take their anger on someone, just because no one cared? He was sure that, if Naruto had come home, Ibiki would have had a happy day. The three had calmed down after half an hour, but they had to leave because they were making too much noise, so the storytelling ended early, and Akane had to make use of her time somehow. So she decided to review her memories and see why she exploded like she did, not to mention she had forgot to explain the Yuki in Naruto's body, the thing she blamed herself the most for. During Naruto's birth, Kurama tried to escape, but not being able to, she resorted to pouring her Yuki into young Naruto, hoping to either burn him or make him into a Hanyo so his parents would kill him themselves. Naruto instead took its Yuki and made it into his own, somehow producing a new set of coils, the Yuki coils, next to his chakra ones. In a different place, Mikoto was crying over her new eyes again. She hated herself. Even if she did the right thing, she was never going to forget what she did. Killing her best friend when she was poisoned to take her out of her misery, leaving two mother-orphan girls, Hinata and Hanabi. Konoha's streets were crowded, and so were the roofs since the patrols of the village increased. But the tension was all but gone, so it was easy not to notice how tense the Anbu were. Their 3 captains and the commander still had not recovered, and the Hokage was feeling extremely down. The Sannin were getting recalled in the village, and all the Junin and Chunin were to be as quick as possible and completing missions as possible, and always research information about Obito wherever they go. The academy students' studies were slightly sped up so they would be ready in case of danger on themselves. The people of Konoha were back to how they were before, as it had not taken much to stop panicking, as the Uchiha clan was not very liked in general. Heck, some even threw a party to the masked man trademark for his great deed. Secretly, among those were 2 girls, though neither could actually be called a small girl, Anko Mitarashi and Akane Okyo. The former, because she was 15 and Orochimaru's apprentice, which could get anyone past childhood fast, and the latter, because she was a fucking 400-year-old demon fox. Did I just rhyme? Anko and Akane were some of the ninja who loved parties, and, aside from Itachi, had no love for the Uchiha. Of course, both were hinged, but then again no one should know that they were here when they should be on duty, or at least Anko should, since Akane had chakra poisoning. The poisoning thing was actually because she messed with the Mangekyo, a bad thing to do for someone who could get controlled by it. The two had taken to saying stories of their life, Anko about her training with Orochimaru and Akane with a slightly edited version of her stories with Naruto, Madara, and Rikadu. Anko was angry that Orochimaru hadn't visited in 2 months, though she knew she shouldn't complain since shinobi could stay years on missions, but she was herself. Akane was getting angry at herself for something else entirely, the fact that she was getting too good with humans. She was supposed to be a goddamn kitsune, yet here she found herself mangled up in more human stuff than most humans. She was the sub-leader of Anbu, girlfriend of the freaking Hokage's son, and also sub-leader of Anbu and savior of the last of the Uchiha clan. Yeah, way too much for her, especially if you count being queen of the kitsunes and one of the Baiju that were so wanted. How the hell did I end up in this mess? She wondered to herself. Oh yeah, I took pity on a young boy who now is my summoner, my official mate and undercover boyfriend. I must be getting drunk. Those were big problems, sure, but the biggest one, not counting Naruto, was in front of her right now, the snake summoners. She liked hanging around Anko and had done more than one mission with Orochimaru, but damn were the elders angry. Why did she give a crap again? Naruto was still in a coma and Itachi was somewhere with bandages over his eyes, probably playing 20 questions with Shisui, as he didn't have anything better to do, and Kakashi was getting drunk right 10 meters away from them at the bar. What did she do to deserve this? Minato, Kushina and Mito gulped as they looked at Naruto's files. They were pretty damn huge for someone who has only been a ninja for 5 years. They were sorted out in multiple categories, and were pretty detailed. Heck, someone would pay millions for all that information, because it was golden, showing every weakness and strength he had, and even traumas and phobias. The perfect thing if he ran away. The medical records were few but grave, especially those from SS-ranked missions. His mission report was staggering: 100 D ranks, 178 C ranks, 183 B ranks, 122 A ranks, 30 S ranks and 7 SS ranks. All in just 5 years, over 600 missions. And not one failure among them, although almost a quarter were rated wrongly because of lies. This guy was way too good for a 13-year-old. The SS ranks were what interested the three, and they were too shocked after the first 3 to say anything. 1. Team: Orochimaru, Danzo, Naruto, and Itachi. Objective: bring down the Mizukage. Time took 1 week. 2. Team: Akane, Naruto, Itachi, and Kakashi. Objective: annihilate the 2 rogue super battalions of Iwa. Each was formed of 50 ninja with A rank or higher, all rogue because of a failed experiment. Time took 2 weeks. 3. Team: Akane and Naruto. Objective: lead an expedition outside the elemental countries. Time took 1 month. The first had been ultra shocking, but it had been small in comparison to the second one, which itself faded next to the third. He had explored out of the elemental countries. That was madness. As they were going over his abilities next, they were shocked by the amount of jutsu he had, and the fact that half sounded like someone was bullshitting them. Yuki Claw? Futon, Rasen Shuriken? Demonic Illusion, Demon's Way? Kitsune Sage Mode? Time-Space Barrier Field? Ice Seal? Puppet Heart, Kunai Performance? Tailed Beast Necklace Seal? Minato read out loud, utterly stunned at this library of unknown jutsus, out of which half were S rank. Heck, the time-space barrier field could go up to SSS class from what he read. He would have gone through many more shocks if he had time to read that the boy was trained by Danzo and Ibiki, but he was stopped by someone entering by window. Unluckily for whoever it was, there was an Anbu behind Minato, and a certain white-haired pervert found himself with a sword at his neck. It didn't stay there for long though, because the Anbu was blew through the wall by a flying door, courtesy of an angry Senju. Trying to escape from the madness, Mito stepped back, only to feel something cold behind her. Slowly looking to the left, she noticed a long tongue. In the next second she was hanging onto Kushina like a koala. "So the Sannin have gathered," said Minato as he looked at the three. Jiraiya was stealing glances at Tsunade, who was hitting her palm with her punch like preparing for battle. Or to beat perverts, and Orochimaru stood with his arms folded smirking evilly at Mito. The Ondaime didn't exactly feel safe around Orochimaru for some reason, but he was needed to help in case anything happened. Even Danzo and Sarutobi were on active duty, so they were not pulling any punches. Danzo had been healed by a joint effort of Tsunade, Orochimaru, Naruto, and Akane, though the latter two were in secret. Orochimaru and Naruto were a very interesting combination. When combined further with Danzo, they were the horror team. Nothing could stay up against them, not even a country could resist much, as proved on Yagura. It was said that if those three wanted to take over the world, they might just be able to. Minato had special reasons for calling all of them to Konoha. Jiraiya was needed to help with defenses and possibly find info on Obito. Tsunade was needed to help with the ones who had been harmed in mission so they could have more ninja, and Orochimaru was there to help with researching new security shield and so on. Orochimaru had become very suspicious lately, often disappearing, and many were wary of him. The fact that many kids were disappearing was also troubling, and many had connected those with Orochimaru's experiments. "I have summoned you all here to ask you to return to Konoha's defenses. I'm sure some of you heard of the Uchiha massacre," he said, stopping to make sure they all nodded, which they did. "Tsunade, I want you to help with healing as many men as possible. Jiraiya-sensei, you need to help check for enemies and secure the breaches in our defenses. Orochimaru, we need you to give us any edge you can, as well as a counter for the Mangekyo Sharingan," he added in his business voice. Orochimaru nodded and left via Sunshine with snakes, which scared Mito, probably because of the QB too. Tsunade and Jiraiya brought questions about what happened and made their own theories. Mito and Kushina just watched everything happen, sometimes sneaking an eye at Naruto's dossier. They were discussing lightly for an emergency, but then again this was Minato and Jiraiya, so unless it had something to do with Icha, ramen, Mito and or learning techniques, it was unimportant. Heck, he once spent one day during the war talking with the guys in the canteen. Mito was already trying to escape through the window because it was too boring. God knows the girl wanted to be Hokage someday, just because it was cool. The peace had lasted for 10 minutes. "Hokage-sama," shouted a voice at the door. "It's an emergency. And it involves Orochimaru," finished the alarmed voice. In a second the two Sannin and Minato had taken the man in. He was battered and bruised and his breathing was hitched, not to mention shaking. He could barely move, so they carried him to a chair. "Breath, drink some water and tell us what is happening," said Minato quickly, with a swift order. As he gave the man a bottle of water, which he accepted thankfully. Hi! Our patrol heard a scream inside a building, and went to see what it was. Apparently, Orochimaru had some labs in which he experimented on several innocent civilians, mostly orphans and beggars. The man said, barely breathing, clearly traumatized. Of course, they had forgot about Mito, who, when hearing about being experimented on, almost fainted from terror. Kushina managed to get the girl to breath, although she was equally horrified. "Is someone on their way there?" asked Jiraiya, in disbelief. Orochimaru would never do that. But still, how did this happen? He thought angry. "Why yes, Sarutobi, Danzo and Akane are on their way there." The man responded stammering, but causing quite a reaction in the others. Jiraiya paled completely, knowing that she had the Fox contract. She is technically a summon, but oh well, Jiraiya doesn't know, and that such a combination was devastating. Minato, Kushina and Mito were scared, because if Naruto woke up to be told Akane died, not even a Shinigami could save them. And Tsunade? Well, she was currently praying for Orochimaru and Manda's souls, for she knew that Akane was more powerful than Naruto. Itachi and the Sannin combined at full power, so the snake had no chance. "We are going to," said Minato, taking a kunai from his pouch. "We are going to arrest the rogue Sannin. This is an SS-ranked mission. Understood?" he asked, and all nodded except Mito. "Let's go. You. Give us information on the address," he ordered. 2020. "Are you sure you should be coming?" asked Sarutobi. Akane sighed and nodded. She was a Damonbu captain, not a pretty little genin. As they closed in on the coordinates, they could see some people stationed outside, along with some small snakes. "Let's beat this, guys, and you will see why I'm coming," she answered before charging at the enemies. They never stood a chance to recover. The first got hit by a kunai with an exploding tag, blowing him up. The second turned around to look at his friend, but got hit by a fireball. The next one tried to throw a kunai, but his 3 kunai didn't stand a chance against 30 shurikens with wind chakra. A fourth one got his legs taken from him from the front, and a chop to his neck instantly killed him. The last one tried to punch her, but she leaned on the right, caught his fist and threw him over her shoulder in the ground. Only chunins? Orochimaru should know better, she declared looking at the dead bodies. Danzo smirked as he looked, trying really hard not to try to invite the girl into rude. He was really impressed by this one. Sarutobi was trying to dispel whatever this illusion was. A 13-year-old beat 5 chunins in 2 seconds? What happened to the epic long battles from before? As Akane was trying to get the bodies in scrolls, a hissing sound was heard before a snake about the size of Akane approached them. Flipping to Sarutobi's left, Akane signaled the 2 older shinobi and Anbu signs about a collaboration technique. This was going to damage a lot. Kaden, Karyudan !/Fuuten, Datappa, Fire Style, Fire Dragon Bullet /Wind Style, Great Breakthrough, shouted the 3, launching their jutsus, Akane and Danzo for wind and Sarutobi for fire. The snake was roasted before long and, at the same time, a yellow flash announced the arrival of reinforcement, Minato and Jiraiya. Tsunade was at the hospital healing the team and Kushina was getting Mito home, so the backup was kind of low. As if on a cue, before of a status report, 3 giant snakes appeared, each about half as big as Manda. The 3 charged at the initial group who were forced to jump away because of exploding tags activating under them. "We'll hold them off," shouted Jiraiya, Danzo, and Sarutobi, each attacking one of the snakes, of course not succeeding. "Go. You must stop Orochimaru before it's too late," the 3 said again in unison as they summoned a toad, a monkey and an elephant. Minato would have complained all day about this if it wasn't for Akane throwing him out of the way of a trap he stepped on. Seeing he had no option, he followed Akane through the building. It was apparently underground, something normal for a hidden place, but not so normal were the corpses that were hanging on the walls. He was disgusted so much, he could puke, but if he did that he may miss Orochimaru, something he didn't want to happen. As he was thinking, he was hit by a wind jutsu courtesy of Akane. He would have shouted at her as he crashed into the wall if he wouldn't have seen Manda pass right through the place where he stood a second ago. Raising, he gave thank you nod to the girl as he prepared to fight, but was forced to use his kunai to Hirashin out of Manda's way. He was in no way out of danger though, as the snake summon followed him in the air and somehow threw a bunch of snakes at him. Minato easily countered with the Rasengan, before having to avoid an extremely long snake, that gave him a scratch on the cheek. Luckily he was saved by Akane with a great breakthrough. As Manda tried to attack him again, Akane jumped in front of him and blocked his fangs. "Go," she shouted annoyed. "You must defeat Orochimaru. I can take care of this giant leather bag." He had no power to negate such a statement and decided to run deeper inside the hideout. He ran as his mind raced, barely noticing the corpses. He ran like a predator. He would not allow Orochimaru to do as he pleases, neither now nor ever. He would stop the snake. As he ran, he suddenly stepped on air, and found himself falling on top of a pool? But this didn't look like water, it smelled like chalk ink eraser? What would he use that for unless— oh yeah, right, his Hirashin kunai had that in them. As he thought of this, he looked up and noticed the walls around were purple. As he threw a normal kunai at them, it disintegrated. So I can't spam Hirashin. What else can I do? DCH, I only have the Rasengan and maybe a dozen good jutsus. Not good at all. He thought as he looked around. Had he really depended on Hirashin that much? Oh well, it was technically, it kind of was what allowed him to become Hokage, and since then he only got worse, and Orochimaru got better. I'm doomed. He thought as he looked around. He didn't have any more time to think because he was punched from behind by Orochimaru, who continued with another punch and finally a kick at the side of the head. He skid on top of the liquid and then he got kicked right in the face, sent flying on his back. Is there really this much of a difference? Impossible, thought Minato as he got beaten around like a rag doll. Trying to regain his space, he sent a Rasengan, but he missed to the left, and got his feet taken from under him, letting him fall on his face. Cuckoo, did you really think I'd be unprepared? I have plotted this for 3 years. I will finally show you why I'm better than you. Without that Hirashin of yours you're useless. Even a Genin could beat you now. Of course the venom is causing some of it, but you can't blame that for such a weak battle. Venom? Then that scratch. That damn snake. He thought, unable to stand. For someone who was always considered a genius, this was a new level of shame. As he was about to be one head shorter, he heard an explosion and, looking up, noticed a figure looking at Orochimaru. Backup round 2 had arrived. Hokage-sama, the figure said. The Ondame nodded dumbly and fell unconscious. Orochimaru sneered at him and shouted, "So you're gonna let your son deal with your business? I always knew you were weak. The figure took out a sword and entered a battle stance. Round 2 had begun indeed. Jiraiya cursed as he took out a small snake with a Rasengan. He should have known better than to come only with so many people. The trap had been obvious. After Akane and Minato had entered, the door had been locked and 30 more snakes alongside several undead Chunin attacked them. The 3 had barely survived the first 3, so 30 was way too much for only them. Their only hope had been Minato finishing Orochimaru quickly so the summons would leave. But no such luck was happening. Sarutobi was battered and bleeding as he stood back to back with his old rival. "Just like old times, eh Danzo?" asked the third as he burned a Chunin, who didn't seem to mind as he just reformed. Danzo smirked and hit the same Chunin with a wind jutsu, throwing him away. "Maybe, but back then we fought real men, not Edo Tensei Chunins." "Curse the Nidaime for even inventing that," he said, hoping the route would arrive quicker. They had been fighting for 10 minutes and his old body was giving away anymore and I will be forced to use Izanagi. It better not come to that, he thought, grimacing as a kunai slashed his cheek. Inside, things weren't going much better. Akane still had a small dizziness from the alcohol so she was tripping over her old legs, hoping Naruto would wake up already and allow her to use Yuki. Just as she was thinking that she felt something cold at the back of her mind. About time, she thought as she seemed to touch something invisible. Her body felt easier, and her opponent, Manda, seemed to move in slow motion. Unfortunately, Manda in slow motion was about as fast as a Junin, so not much help. Using an Anbu sword she kept inside a seal on her forearm, she cut down the snakes flying her way. Then, with blinding speed, made the hand signs for a giant fireball and launched it at the enemy. Manda barely dodged it and found himself in a good position for a charge. Naruto stared at Orochimaru and tried to look as scary as possible, which was much seeing as he quite literally jumped from the hospital directly into battle. He didn't even get out of bed, heck he didn't even open his eyes before he teleported. He couldn't move well and had barely enough chakra for a Nodama Rasengan, so no big ninjutsu and taijutsu. He was pretty much stuck with glaring actually, as long as he didn't use any secret abilities. Orochimaru didn't know that though, and decided to destroy the barrier and go out to fight on the open, as not to be trapped with a massive Rasengan with no space to dodge. As Danzo, Sarutobi and Jiraiya attacked and defeated one big snake, they noticed 3 figures heading their way. Prepared to defend themselves, Sarutobi took out his giant weapon, Jiraiya activated the Sage mode and Danzo prepared to take out his bandages and use Izanagi. Luckily, they weren't required to, for in the next second, all the snakes were burned by black fire and the Chunins got sent through some portal things. "Backup is here, Sarutobi-sama, Jiraiya-sama, Danzo-san. Uchiha Shisui, Uchiha Itachi and Hatake Kakashi reporting." The 3 shouted as one. No one noticed a black-haired man watched them frowning. "Looks like I'll have to use her after all," he thought annoyed. Akane was watching frozen how Manda was 1 meter away from her when she heard a voice. 50 arrows of lightning, shouted Nagi, destroying Manda in 1 shot, or 50 for that matter. The girl smiled and nodded her head as thanks to her brother. The problem right now however was that the building was collapsing, probably due to the hits taken outside and the fact that Nagi came through the roof. Activating a second tail of Yuki, Akane jumped through the roof. As she landed, however she felt something was draining off her Yuki. "I finally have a bit of all 9, shouted a man, continuing to laugh maniacally. Everyone was staring at him. Meanwhile, Naruto had been forced to activate his Yuki to be able to move, let alone fight a Sannin. Also, he was preparing to activate Sage mode, having 2 clones gathering natural chakra. The snake summoner was using a blade that was made for thrusts, so he was in a pretty bad situation as he had to deflect them. He had not expected the sword to have wind chakra, so when his blades cracked and broke in 2, he had been shocked. Instinctively, he threw his broken swords and reached for his waist, hoping to find something there, and he did, but not any sword. Akane, Nagi, Danzo, Sarutobi and the others watched how, from 9 kettles, emerged 9 differently colored Yuki tails. Only Akane, Itachi and Kakashi knew what that meant. However, someone had taken Yuki form the 9 Baijuas, and that could only lead to one thing. Akane quickly threw a giant fire dragon at the forming mass of Yuki, and the hit seemed to connect, and whatever was happening was covered by smoke. For a second, Akane thought she succeeded, but 1 second later, she felt a cold breath at the back of her neck, followed by a dark, deep voice. "Is this how you welcome me after I haven't seen you in 400 years? My daughter?" Everyone froze thinking of who had such a voice, and how could she be Akane's mother, not to mention from 400 years ago, that was about the time the Baijuas were born. As soon as they put that aside, they switched their eyes to the woman. They had to admit they could see the resemblance. The woman was like an older Akane, with black hair and tan skin. It was her eyes that caught attention, however. They were a strange combination of the Sharingan and Rinnegan, red with 3 concentric rings each with domos on them. Orochimaru had seen a lot of things in his life, out of which the strangest were his own creation, but he never saw a sword made of freaking light before. The sword quite literally burned through his, leaving a yellow flash behind it. Naruto panted as he mentally thanked Mitra and Revan for giving him that sword in the first place. "You are welcome," shouted 2 voices in his head. Great, he had forgotten they could contact him. Why did he even agree to help them again? Oh yeah, he wanted to study the lightsaber. As he waved off the 2 Jedi in his head, he noticed that Orochimaru was running away. The bastard even had the generosity to leave him with some pretty small snakes, which got burned quite fast. He ran after him and had the decency to observe what a crowd they had attracted, and to glare at the Anbu eating popcorn on the sides instead of helping. It was with fear that he saw Mito and Kushina running towards the Ondaime's house. Unfortunately, so did Orochimaru. The Juubi and the Kyuubi stared each other down under the stares of a quarter of Konoha's population, who for some reason was staring instead of running to safety, some even betting on the winner. The Juubi made the first move, appearing in front of Akane and slapping her, sending her through a building, before the girl found herself grabbed by the throat by the older Baijuo. The girl puffed out of existence and appeared behind the Juubi, launching a tailed beast bomb at her. The bomb was made with 2 tails worth of chakra though, so the Juubi just stood, let it hit her, and had almost no scratch. Angry at the weak display of power, Kyuubi's mother decided on a different course of action. "If this is all, I think you need some motivation," she said, disappearing from her sight, and reappearing behind Sarutobi and Danzo, a Yuki-made sword going through each of their abdomens. Akane stared in disbelief as the 2 shinobi fell on the pavement, dead before even touching the ground. Then she snapped, and went 4-tail mode. The Juubi smirked as she watched Akane summon more Yuki, but something didn't quite piece together. She was supposed to go 9 tails after that, not 4. The woman looked at the girl carefully, leaving some Yuki claws to take care of Akane's Baiju Adama bridge. Suddenly she noticed something strange. Could it be? She wondered as she exclaimed, "Release!" Suddenly, a poof of smoke appeared at Akane's neck, revealing a necklace with a pearl and 4 cuts on top of it, 1 cut for 1 tail, she decided. Grinning, she used her Rinnegan, Divine Attraction, she shouted, and the necklace was suddenly in her hand. Akane's Yuki instantly went berserk, forcing her to release her own. She smiled softly at how powerful the girl actually was, already leaning towards a 10th tail. She knew the girl missed one thing, however: experience with using more than 4 tails. Orochimaru threw a giant fireball at Naruto, who defended himself with a wind just to the bird deflection. It created an aerodynamic position, making it as if he moved at 400 km/h, so he passed through the fire without a single burn. Orochimaru only used that as a distraction, however, and Naruto found himself bit at his feet by snakes. He fell down on all 4s, and looked at Mito. Suddenly, he felt energized, and heard a voice: "I took care of it through our force bond, so don't worry about it. I also gave you a speed increase, so you might want to save that girl," said Mitra Surik. Contacting him yet again all the way formed the Ebon Hawk. With his power restored, the blonde-haired teenager jumped like mad and barely made it in front of Mito as Orochimaru almost put a sword through her head. What he did, however, was put his body in front of Orochimaru, getting a sword through his stomach. Everyone gasped. Juubi had begun by attacking the girl, and she found it impossible to actually hit her. The girl didn't have much training like this, but she was creative and had fought in the last 400 years in human form, unlike her mother who had watched everything all the way from the moon, and had fought in demon form before. When Akane went on the offensive, Juubi barely dodged them, and was forced to block a few times. If she had control of all 55 tail power, she would be killing her via pinching, but with 9 tails worth of it she was weaker than the girl, who was getting closer and closer to 10 tails. Initially, they seemed equal, with Akane being a little better, but then the young girl saw Naruto impaled by Orochimaru, and everything stopped. When Juubi tried to stop Half-Kurama, she found herself grabbed by some gigantic purple hands, courtesy of Itachi and Shisui Susanoo, and 30 arrows of lightning were circling her just in case. Akane caught Naruto's body before it hit the ground and tried healing him, but was having little luck. Mito was too shocked to do much, and Kushina was trying, and failing epically, to hit Orochimaru. The snake dodged another punch by leaning to the right and finally countered with a punch to the stomach, leaving Kushina on the pavement while going for Mito. As he extended his hand after her, something blue appeared behind her and she sprung into action with no warning. She somehow pulled Naruto's lightsaber and cut Orochimaru's hand before throwing him away. The blue figure behind her finally said something: "I'm sorry, Mito, but there was no other way. The others, finally understanding something of the whole mess, immediately felt their jaws drop as Naruto's Force Ghost tried to put his hand on Mito's head, but it was pointless. As he passed through her, Akane was punching the ground, leaving a meteor-like sign on the ground. Tears were forming as she looked at Naruto's ghost, and she finally let out a sob, and started muttering about Naruto and what to do now. Ju-Ubi started to feel sorry. Akane was technically her daughter, so Naruto was going to be her son-in-law, not to mention she didn't want to think of what Akane would do now. Yay, what was that jutsu again? Step away, Akane, shouted Ju-Ubi, using Shinra Tensei to blow away the Susuzus, and finally went near Naruto's Force Ghost, which she somehow caught by the collar, dragged to Akane, and threw in the body as she shouted, "I'm not having my future son-in-law dying now. Get back in there. Ghetto art of Rin rebirth." She sighed, seeing the ghost go back inside. Orochimaru stared in shock at Minato as he was covered by Kyuubi's yin chakra, making him an orange cloak with one tail going out. Luckily, Obito, whom no one noticed before, appeared behind him and took him away with a Kamui. This battle was lost already. Normally, the fact that such a hard battle had been won would be celebrated, but the only thing that people could do was look down. They had lost two famous shinobi, almost lost a third, and had a new danger to fight against, not to mention the money needed for the damage the battle had left. They were in for one hell of a ride. Intermission. It had been a couple of days since that, and they seemed to be recovering rather easily, with the Ju-Ubi disappearing after overexerting herself from the Rin rebirth. Kakashi was resting since the battle, which he had lost due to falling unconscious from Kamui overuse. Itachi and Shisui were back to the bandages. Naruto was resting and trying to connect with the force, whatever that was, and Akane was training to go further. Use more Yuki, trying to get to her fifth rail without taking out the medallion. Mito was back at the academy and, after a check with the Jinchuriki to explain how dangerous it was to let their chakra out, had settled back into normal, though the lessons improved, and kids even learned the tree walking and water walking, and they got their affinities checked when they left the academy. All in all, things had changed a little, but nothing really interesting happened for the next 4 years. Alright guys, that's the end for now. This is Chaos Shinobi signing off.